Hi, this is Jenn from stampwithjenn.com. In today's video, I want to show you how to do a technique called no line stamping. So you've got the lines on there that outline the image, but there's also color in behind. So I'm going to show you everything you need to know how to do this cute little technique. Here are the supplies you need to make this card. Start with embossing products. We need white embossing powder and something to capture the powder, an embossing buddy, and also a heat tool. For inks, you're going to need So Saffron and a Versamark ink. I've got an old olive ribbon here, and then the cardstock. All the measurements are in the PDF underneath this. You can get the link underneath the video. The stamp set is Perennial Birthday, and use that image and also the Happy Birthday stamp. There's a piece of watercolor you're going to need too. Again, the measurements are in the PDF. Stamparatus, some watercolor pencils. I'm going to use the Big Shot with these dies, the stitch shape framelit dies, and also the layering circles. In particular, I want the scallop, and this is the basket weave embossing folder. You're also going to need an aqua painter and these classic markers in Rich Raspberry, Bermuda Bay, and Old Olive. And then your regular stamping supplies, some adhesive like snail, some scissors, and some dimensionals. So I'm going to start with the Stamparatus, and I'm going to open it, and I'm going to attach the watercolor paper with the magnet. And I want the image to fall about there, so I'm just going to use the plate to pick up that image. And I'm going to move this down here so you can see it, and I'm going to ink it up with So Saffron ink. And then I'm going to stamp it on, make sure your hinges are in, stamp it on that paper, and don't move the paper. And then I'm going to just use our new chamois here to give the stamp a clean, get that ink off there. Okay, and again, not touching the paper, not letting it move. I'm going to use watercolor pencils, and I'm going to just put a little bit of color, just rough around the outline. And this is the no line. This is why we use the So Saffron. It's nice and light, and we're actually going to almost cover it up. It's almost just being used as an outline, as a guide for the coloring. So I'm going to take my aqua painter now, and I'm going to just blend those watercolor pencils in. I love how beautifully they blend, and basically almost erasing that line. So this just kind of becomes a container for that background of the image. And each time you change colors, of course, you've got to dab it off on the side. And so I'm just doing the leaves here, and again, basically just effectively erasing that outline. And again, dabbing it off, and finishing with the Bermuda Bay, just those little circles. The water just really brings out the vividness of the watercolor pencils. So when you finish, what you want to do is you want to let that dry. Again, not moving the paper. We're waiting for the flower to dry. We'll do the words, and they are embossed. So first thing I'm going to do is rub my embossing buddy over there to remove any static from the paper. That helps with the little strands of or dots of embossing powder you might get. And then once I've done that, I'm going to ink up the saying with Versamark and stamp it. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with my embossing powder. Now I like to use something to capture that powder. You could use a little Tupperware tray. I like a coffee filter because it captures it all. It's easy to funnel back in, and then you can just throw the mess away. You'd heat that up with the gun, of course, and like I said, then you would use that to funnel and save that powder, and it actually lasts a super long time. Next, I'm going to cut out this scallop oval using that size, and I'm actually going to cut it right on the Rich Raspberry piece of cardstock, because on the card you're not going to see it. There's that hole that we're going to make is going to be covered up. So I'm going to put that on my Big Shot and cut it out like that. And then I'm going to do the embossing, and the reason that you do the embossing after is otherwise your circle will be embossed as well. Not that that wouldn't be a nice look, but that isn't what I did on here. Now a tip on a folder like this, because there's very clearly up and down kind of lines, you want to line it up. I line it up on the side and up at the top as well, and you can kind of see that it's going to be straight. Now this is one of the thicker embossing folders, so what you do is you take off a plate, put down your embossing folder with the paper in it, and then just use a top plate and run it through the Big Shot. So I'm going to fold my card base in half. I like to use a bone folder to give it a nice sharp crease. And now because this paper is bumpy with all that really deep etched texture, I'm going to put lots of snail on here to make sure that that does not come off. And then what you want to do is make sure your card is opening the right way. And then I'm going to place this layer on the card front. And I'm going to take my time to make sure that I've got it straight. And don't press too hard until you're sure it's straight, and then give it a good firm rub. and then that will not move at all. So to do the ribbon, what I'm going to do is lay a piece of ribbon on here and then cut it, and then I'm going to tape it onto the back of the card. Just wrap the ends around and tape it. And again, the measurements for all of this is in the PDF just below in the comments. And then I'm going to use a dimensional to secure that ribbon, so again it doesn't come undone when it's sitting on the card. And when I get to the end of my dimensionals, I don't throw them out, I use all of the little bits. So I just take my scissors and cut them up and then just use those bits. Sometimes actually they work quite nicely in a corner there. And again, you're going to see that this little piece is going to cover up that hole we made. So it's a great way to use up your cardstock without wasting any piece of it. So those little release papers just come off the back, and then I'm going to stick that on, making sure it's all straight. I'm going to go back now to our watercolored image, which will be dry, and we haven't moved it, and I'm going to take the markers, and using the brush tip I'm going to ink up the stamps. You want to use the brush tip because it's bigger, fatter, and you want to go a little bit on the side of the marker so you're not wrecking that tip. And so I'm going to ink up each of the parts of this flower super quick and easy with a marker. Now if we had just stamped this the way I'm doing this now, see I'm also grabbing the stems here too and the leaves. If you had stamped this directly after inking it up with just the marker, it would still be pretty, but it wouldn't have the background color that we'd already put on. So that's kind of the beauty of this. And this is kind of an extra step. I mean, it looks pretty the way we've done it with watercoloring, but by doing this you're adding just another level, and the final step is to huff on it, which is what I'm doing there. And then I'm going to stamp this down, and it should line up perfectly because we haven't moved anything. That's the beauty of the Stamparatus. And there we go. You can see there's the outline, and that's colored to match the inside color. It's just really pretty. So now I can move this and I can cut this image out. So I'm using the stitch shaped framelits, and I want to use the one that just perfectly fits the image like that. So I'm going to go cut that out on the Big Shot, and then we will finish up the card. So I'm attaching the watercolor piece to the scallop oval that we previously cut out. Love that stitch shape, it just adds an extra little something to the image. And then I'm going to use more dimensionals, and I'll just continue to use up all my little scraps here on the back. So this is kind of a poofy card, so when you mail it, it'll squish down a little bit. But this really brings that focal image to the front. I love these colors together, the olive and the Bermuda and the rich raspberry is just really fun and rich. And then I'm going to take a second piece of ribbon and tie a little knot. So I like to leave my ribbon on the spool when I'm doing this so I don't waste a single piece. And you can see it there, and then I'll just spool it back up and then just trim where I need it to be. And when you always want to trim your ribbon on an angle, your ends on an angle, so that you reduce the fraying, plus it just looks really nice. So my last step is I'm going to take my Wink of Stella glitter pen and just add a little bit of sparkle to that flower, and maybe these little wee bits here too. And that takes only seconds, and then it's dry, and it's probably hard to see in the camera here, but it does have a nice little sparkle. So here's my original, which is a bit darker than the one I just did, and that's just the watercoloring, so it'll look a little different each time you do it. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to do this no-line stamping technique. Check back to stampwithjen.com often for other tips, tricks, and techniques. And don't forget to grab your PDF that has all of the information from this video below in the comments. Thank you.